Talk Cosmos is giving away a beautiful 2020 moon calendar for those of you listening during any broadcast of Talk Cosmos on KKNW. Just give us a call at 888-298-5569, and Talk Cosmos will mail you this unique 2020 moon calendar designed by Ursula Stockter, who is an astrologer, painter, and Mexico representative for Kepler Latino America Astrology software at Ursula's Cultural Center in Mexico City. And it can be yours by calling 888-298-5569.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Hello again. This is Rose Minahan, Talk Cosmos, and today is January 11th, 2020, and it's being repeated on Thursday on the 16th, Thursday at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that would be either on the radio here in Seattle, Washington, Pacific time, or else you just go to Talk Cosmos, and all that information is there. Guest information and the past archives, or else go to 1150 KKNW at this particular moment online, and you can hear us. So tonight our subject is a topic, and it's not just a topic, it's an energy that astrologers have been waiting for many years, in fact, because yesterday, well, the title of our show is Traditions Traded. And from this energy that we have 6 planets in Capricorn and countless points. When I say countless points, the South Node is there. Both South Nodes of Saturn and Pluto. Tomorrow they're going to be conjunct, which is an energy that happens periodically, but with this connection, with all this Capricorn energy, and particularly with other Earth energy of Uranus and Taurus, it hasn't happened since the Reformation with Martin Luther, when he tacked his thesis on the door, and the big changes were established. Going way back, if you go back BC, there's this period of time of great sages, as you might say, or our prophetic people such as Confucius and Plato. They're not quite equal. One is, the philosopher, and the other started a whole consciousness, Buddhism, of course, or not Buddhism, but Confucianism, yes, of the Asian religions. And so, meaning that the change element that we're experiencing, and as one knows, going down the river, it's a little hard to remember every bend and bump, but you get down the river and then you see new terrain. And essentially, I suppose that's one way to look at it. So we will be having this discussion with 2 people. It's a panel. It's a cosmic collaboration, and it's a Capricorn Cosmic Collaboration of Talk Cosmos that is occurring monthly. And the 2 astrologer guests from the Seattle area here are Amanda Pierce. She's an evolutionary astrologer and empowerment-based meditation energy work, which she does consultations and teaches. She has a degree in psychology. Actually, it's a Bachelor of Arts. And she does writing, editing, and has been on many past episodes since 2018. If you go back 23rd of June, August 4th, this year, also in August, and then these collaborations, one in October and November. And Shannon Hayes, a certified evolutionary astrologer, consultant with Mayan astrology, stargazer. And she owns a Seattle hair designer salon, photographer, and animal activist. And her past episodes also are numerous in 2018, in June and December. And this year, March, July, and with Amanda Pierce, this will be our 3rd Cosmic Collaboration. The other was October 5th and the 23rd of November. So these are big subjects, and we might say that when it comes to tradition, that really our reality is comprised of traditions that we become accustomed to accepting. So perhaps questioning that will be part of our conversation. And each of us will introduce one concept, some highlight that is dear to us that we can speak about. So I'll start it off, and I'll mention that when it comes to tradition, that people are traditional or else modern. It's one way to look at some of their approach, at least to astrology, when with a traditional standpoint, it's more of a Saturnian viewpoint, which has roots in material. It's also very spiritual, but from this concrete form, it's really more about knowing predictions and how are things going to work as far as many definite factors. Whereas the modern person that's more information-based looks more for soul growth. And these are generalized, but it's just one concept. And it's more on a soul growth process, in meaning that this year, I bring this up because there is an intensity, obviously, when you have this vast number, the Sun and Mercury, the South Node, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, along with the Venus star point for Capricorn, which is 21 degrees. And you have also the South Nodes of Pluto and Saturn. Gets a tongue twister, all those different ones. But anyway, it also is right in there in 21, 22, 23 degrees. But right now the conjunction is 22, and it's all cardinal, meaning if you have anything cardinal in those degrees, give or take some, energy is really manifesting. But this is also global, so we will talk the stretch. Getting back to the tradition versus the modern, at the end of the year, there's a number of cycles, but Saturn and Jupiter that connect every 20 years is ushering in air, and it will be in Aquarius. So that will be taking some of this, all of this traditional thinking. As I had said, our reality is made up of a lot of traditions. So we are going to be weeding them and thinking about them as we're gearing phase by phase somehow through these times with the rest of humanity into perhaps more of a modernistic moment where we are connected and collaborated. So Amanda, what would be your highlight?
Well, I think with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, I would say finding your inner authority is important.
We will talk a lot about that. Thank you. That's instead of the external. Yes.
Yes.
And going inward. And Shannon Hayes, perhaps you have.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
So do you have a thought that you would really like to bring up for this conversation before we launch?
Yeah, I would like to maybe touch on, speaking of traditions with Capricorn and the Cancerian energy, I would like to talk a little bit about our ancestors, where our roots and our traditions actually come from. How I think that all this Capricorn energy is a call for being more in touch with that energy.
These dovetail so beautifully, and it really morphs from what I was saying about traditional to modern, although that's sort of a backdrop, because really getting to the inner authority, the ancients had a real connection, and many people these days too, with meditation, or meditation today, but of the ancients looking at the stars.
Oh, yeah, they were totally in touch with the natural world, which is very, it's like Cancerian, and it's also Saturnian, because the earth is dense and it's heavy, and the ancients were fully aware of their place on the planet as well as how valuable Earth was to them. They couldn't live without the animals, the trees, the plants, the herbs, the dirt. It was all very important. So, yeah.
Everyone lived in more of a balance.
Yeah, exactly.
That is key. In fact, Georgia Strathis, who is another astrologer, I was looking, every astrologer is speaking of this, and it's wonderful. It's such a communication to glean from. And she was bringing up the fact that the first coins had both the divine and the secular to keep that balance in our heads. And that now, even with our dollar, we have it with the great I, with the great seal. And as we're moving away from even any kind of tangible money,
Right.
and in our societies too, in some ways, keeping that reminder of this balance, of this reverence, as you were saying, Shannon, of nature, and Amanda, of having this reverence and connection, thanking for the food. I mean, we do it some, but
Yeah, no, it was, gratitude was a huge part of it, especially like in the Mayan tradition. The Popol Vuh talks a lot about the different generations and their ancestors before each generation. The Popol Vuh is like a book of creation, right? It was their book of council. And they talk a lot about not just having reverence to the gods, but how the gods lived with them and were an intrinsic part of their community. But there was also like everybody, it was community minded. The Mayan culture is very community minded, and everybody had a part.
Boy, to be community based in India, I receive the Environmental Defense Fund, and whether I contribute much, but they have fascinating information. And one was about India in particular, that for their survival, because 1 billion people around the world eat rice. And then not just eat rice, but they depend on the rice industry, or not industry, but farming rice for their livelihood, the whole process. And that 80% of the people are of poverty and rural. And there's had these terrible droughts where the roads have melted. It's really intense. And since 2001, 20,000 farmers have committed suicide because of terrible costs. Like sometimes they can only get to the market maybe twice a year, and because they can only afford that. And then they're left with so much more produce, and because they don't have refrigeration. So there are energies, thankfully, that are not just energies, but like Environmental Defense Fund, and this woman in particular that headed that sciences that are helping, and they've got a package where. And so I was thinking to myself, well, India, the bottom line, there's so many bottom lines there, but one of them was that the community is so important. And for instance, there's also technological help where a lot of people have smartphones there everywhere. And there's one app where if they can show a picture of a pest or a yellow leaf and say, well, what is this? And they can get help. Or in learning when to water, that if you use less water, you may not get the methane, because methane's a big problem with our environment. And of course, we're talking about this because within that, I didn't mention Ceres, but Ceres, which, the goddess of
the harvest.
Yes. Lots of it or none of it. Ancient times, one of the factors that we're with this release point of the Capricorn energy.
Well, and we've gotten so far away from community in our world. We're so focused on technology, and we get together less often, and we're less connected with our food sources too. And so there's less of that connection with nature, and we don't have to forage for our food or hunt for our food. So there's less connection and less respect for where it comes from. And there may be, with Saturn, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that you mentioned, Sue, which is coming December 21st, that will be in Aquarius. And Aquarius is a very community-based sign. So that may be some area where we're going to see more importance come through in the collective.
Indeed. Because hardship does lend us to, we'll either fight or connect and be with each other. And the other one is coming up in March. Yes, it is March 21st, March 31st, all in there. Mars and Saturn will be in Aquarius too. And some of these are pretty potent energies. But yes, we have steps ahead.
Yeah.
So hopefully more
I, for one, welcome some of that Aquarian energy. We're so ensconced in the Capricorn right now. There's so many planets. We've got Mercury, Saturn, Pluto, the Sun, Jupiter, the South Node, all in Capricorn.
Yeah.
It's a lot of energy, a lot of Capricornian energy, and it feels pretty heavy.
Yeah. Very heavy. Yeah. Yeah, and you see it all around. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, the archetype like screams at you everywhere you look. It's like, oh my God, craziness. I mean, it's like people are edgy and things are intense, and then we won't even talk about what's going on politically, but, you know, because that's a total Capricornian, like kind of.
And very Saturn, Pluto.
Very Saturn, Pluto, exactly.
Yeah.
Total Saturn, Pluto.
Which maybe we should mention to people. A lot of astrologers understand this, but the Saturn is crystallized. It is a mineral. It is earth. It is a 10th sign of structure and traditions, you know, long time standing things, and also law and governments. And again, a lot of this spiritual and esoteric also, although we've forgotten that. It is a yin sign. David Pond at WASA, Washington State Astrological Association today was bringing that up, that it is yin, so it is receptive. It is this. It's feminine.
It's receptive and it's internal. So there is the ability with Capricorn to look within, and so often with Capricorn we use that energy externally. It becomes very materialistic, very ambitious in a worldly sense, like climbing the ladder. It's very Capricorn.
Well, yeah, and climbing the ladder, I mean, also has to, I mean, there's a whole lot of maturity that goes with that. I mean, you know, Saturn and Capricorn is about cycles of maturation, right, and growth. Like you said, both internally and externally.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on a spiritual level, that's Capricorn at its highest, right? It comes from a place of, you know, not so much like purity, but it has a very strong sense of ethics and morals.
Yes,
it has moral codes, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, which also gets into the karmic thing, right? Because
so important.
Yeah, if you're on a spiritual path and like your Saturn is working that direction, you know, it's like you can get the, was it Marie? So I said the karmic broom, right? If you're not in alignment with like Saturn, so yeah.
It gets back to choice, which again is that square with Libra. And I think when people, because all of this is wonderful to achieve and to have masteries, you know, it helps other people. Obviously, we have all kinds of structures in society that are helpful, but it also can be where there's fear and that's where it needs to step away and release.
Yes.
And remember that it's not me again, it's not us against them, it's the we. It's that communal, ancestral relationship where nature too is part of this unit.
Yeah. Capricorn it has its wonderful qualities, but it can also represent fear, control, restriction, constriction, judgment,
scarcity,
yeah, and guilt and shame as well.
Yeah, it's a loaded batch.
It's very loaded, yeah.
Because it takes a lot. I mean, granted, to really achieve things, sometimes one does have to push aside the personal. But we're at a moment in collective consciousness where this has come, what we have seen is a result of all these thoughts. And Jupiter in the mix is helping us realize, well, if we want to change things for 2020, change our, shift our values, our perspectives, and go back to the center instead of looking at the external, what's happening physically.
Yes. And we do have a lot of planets in Capricorn right now, but I think that Jupiter being in Capricorn is a great thing. It's not, Jupiter doesn't like Capricorn, but Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and we are really needing to do our Saturn work right now. That's what this Saturn-Pluto conjunction is about. And so Jupiter is expansive, it's passionate, it wants to jump on things, it's fire. And it can't do that in Capricorn. But it still has its benefic qualities that it can impart to us. It's just going to be doing it under Saturn's rule because Saturn is leading the way for Jupiter.
And in some ways, I think it depends on what we choose with Jupiter, because Jupiter is of the expansion, which is the religions, the philosophies, the adventure of mind further out and beyond and across, its cultures away. I mean, it's so expansive. So if we think of a new vision of our life and a new direction and apply the tool, the work with it, then I think it's harnessed in a good, it's like riding the horse in a good fashion.
Absolutely. And Saturn can represent realities. So it's kind of in the natal chart where your Saturn is placed, it's your reality structure. And
ooh, yes, reality.
Yeah, and we all have our different versions of reality. No one sees things exactly the same way. And Jupiter is going to tie in with that a bit because it's about beliefs. So your realities are based on your beliefs. And there is opportunity here to kind of take more ownership of your beliefs and do the yin Capricorn, go within a little bit and take responsibility for where you're at.
And this goes right into the idea that we eventually are our own parents. James Hillman, which had his Soul's Code, a very chunky book and very worthwhile, relates how in ancient times we had our parental role as the divinity. It wasn't our biological parents that now we have heaped all these expectations upon, which in some form or other can eventually be disappointing, right? Or worse. But going back to, and besides that, it gives away our authority. So by looking at the divine idea of what fatherhood, that whole gift of protection. There was a Lakota woman. I think you, Shannon, said that you saw the hoop, the great hoop
the
in
sacred
Arizona.
Hoop.
Sacred hoop.
In Sedona,
And we'll go on that in just a minute here, because in this woman wrote an article about the sacred hoop and for masculinity, that it's protection, but that we're reframing what masculinity and femininity, which is the co-creation of receptive and tradition.
Reframing, that's a great Saturn Capricorn word.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. That's great. Yeah.
And I wanted to touch on what you were saying about the parents. That, it's when we're children, parents are supposed to take care of us and teach us. But at some point, we have to take the reins of our own life, and we become our own parents. And regardless of how they raised us, they could have screwed up royally. But it's still, when you are an adult, you are still responsible for what you have been given and where you are at.
Yeah, it's our ownership.
Mm-hmm.
It's because then you have the power, and that's going to Pluto. Pluto is about power or no power. It's always these factors. You have it or you don't have it, and therefore it's about it. So to have power goes back to the inner self. So would you say this must be right with, I don't know, I was remembering about the mythology of Capricorn, which is Prisus, who is a sea goat, and all his little baby sea goats wanted to go to the shore and lay on the beach, and then they would lose their tail. They could no longer speak or think, and he was so fearful that they would become mindless animals that he kept using his control, because Capricorn is time. It's that the limits. It's not timeless. This is the time. So he kept turning time back so he could start all over again. But regardless, the little sea goats would go to shore, and that was the end of it. So he realized, cannot do that. You have to let life be. And that made him quite lonely, which is interesting too, because as we go on our path of self-achievement, it can be, they always say, lonely at the top, right?
Right.
Although
Yeah.
I think too, if you have heart-centered, and that's what this world is about, reconnecting our heart here, there's going to be, and if nothing else, you have the spiritual sense, however you look at it, there's this connection with trees or something.
Right.
Well, I love that you brought up the sea goat, because the sea goat has a tail, and it's partly of the water. And with Capricorn, we don't often think of it as being a watery emotional sign, but there is a need to connect with the emotional, and its opposite sign is Cancer,
Yeah.
which is, one of the most emotional signs. And we just had a lunar eclipse yesterday
Yeah.
with the
Yes, we did.
with the moon and North Node in Cancer.
20 degrees.
Yeah. And so it's right in line with this Saturn Pluto conjunction. And there, with Capricorn, you're often shoving down the emotions a little bit, to take care of things. People with Capricorn moons often had to grow up too fast. Or potentially if you have a Capricorn South Node, you were a general in the army and you did not have time for emotion because people's lives were at stake.
Leadership, absolutely.
Absolutely. That is.
Thank you, Amanda.
Part of what Capricorn is about, but this lunar eclipse and all this Capricorn energy is really asking us to connect in with the emotional and to be really gentle with ourselves during these times, and to nurture ourselves.
What a
Right.
great talk. I love this. With Shannon Hayes and Amanda Pierce. And this is about traditions traded on January 11th with the stellium of Capricorn and the Cancer new moon that astrologers are going to continue to talk about, trying to figure things out. So we'll take a little break and we'll be back.
Do you have a question or something to contribute for today's Talk Cosmos program? If you're listening to the live show on Saturday, the phone lines are now open until 6:45 Pacific. Give us a call at 888-298-5569 to either join us on the air or we can write it down for you. Once again, that's 888-298-5569.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the furthest visible planet by the eye. By leaving a cycle based on meaningfulness and truth, Capricorn's energy establishes social boundaries in a structure incorporating rules, authority, and ethics. As a cardinal earth sign depicted by a sea goat climbing from the sea up to the top of a mountain, Capricorn overcomes fears through goals and ambitions to achieve mastery.
Talk Cosmos is giving away a beautiful 2020 moon calendar for those of you listening during any broadcast of Talk Cosmos on KKNW. Just give us a call at 888-298-5569, and Talk Cosmos will mail you this unique 2020 moon calendar designed by Ursula Stockter, who is an astrologer, painter, and Mexico representative for Kepler Latino America Astrology software at Ursula's Cultural Center in Mexico City. And it can be yours by calling 888-298-5569.
Hello, this is Marie O'Neill with Padma Life Coaching, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we discuss the meaningfulness of our roots in the stars.
Wondering what's on next on Alternative Talk 1150? Check out 1150kknw.com.
Hello again. Sue Rose Minahan, Shannon Hayes, Amanda Pierce. Cosmic Collaboration in Capricorn on January 11th and repeating on the 16th at 6 a.m. here in Seattle, Washington. That's Pacific time, so go to Talk Cosmos and you can get this whole talk again and all the others. Well, we're just finishing up. Well, we're continuing on about this, and I think we're going to look at some of the charts because yesterday again was the eclipse. Now, the eclipse happened on the other side of where we are located. Maybe some of you are listening and are down there, but it was with the Philippines, I believe, going into India and up through lower part of Asia. Pretty potent. And tomorrow, which will be on the 12th, is the stellium, which is still the stellium, but the point is that Saturn and Jupiter, not Jupiter,
Pluto.
Thank you. Thank you. Are at 22 degrees. But then along with it is Ceres and Mercury and the Sun. They're all 20 to 22. And tomorrow they're all more like 21. Tomorrow they're all 22 degrees. It's just incredible. It's just like, pow.
Yeah, and tomorrow it is when Saturn and Pluto make an exact conjunction. And so it's a new cycle for them. And it's kind of like Saturn is always kind of a report card for where you're at with different energies. And here we're at 22 degrees Capricorn. So, we've made it more than 2/3 of the way through. And Saturn's saying like, well, how are you? Where are you with doing your Capricorn work? And how have you been working this Pluto and Capricorn transit, which is all about transformation and purging, killing off the old so that the new can be reborn.
It's a deep process.
It's a very deep process, and it can be a very scary process. And sometimes the
choice isn't always our
absolutely.
Our own. But that's the ticket. By realizing these, and that gets right back to astrology, and that's why it really helps to understand the energies are there, how it relates to your own personal life, and you can see it played out in so many different lives, is a constant question. People are moving, people are breaking up, and it's amazing. I was on the bus coming back from visiting my mother and father or stepdad, and with assisted living, and there was a young man who had quite a story, and it worked out very well, but the father it was one of these breaking situations, and really that is what happens. The father, I don't know how much I should relate because little towns and stuff, but the fact was that there were habits that had to be discontinued, and so it just showed me how. Well, it was okay. I think I'll stop there.
Well, no, I kind of get what you're saying, though. I mean, with Pluto and Saturn, it's like there's going to be change. Something's going to happen. So if it helps when you know astrology because you can kind of go, okay, well, this is coming up. So you get ready for it on a certain level. But sometimes it's like, you think you might be ready for it, and then you're not quite, and stuff shows up that like totally throws you off track. And
absolutely.
And you see that with people like a lot, like walking around just ordinary day life, how like when people aren't exactly sure, they know something weird is going on planetary, but they don't know just how intense it is. And with Pluto Saturn, it's like it's intense, so
and Capricorn is a serious energy,
right? It's
not
very
fun.
Serious and heavy. Exactly, it's heavy.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
Yeah,
it's not easy at all. But it's like when things have to go, they're going to go in that time.
Yeah, and
dry humor.
And Saturn is our structure in life, and Pluto's gonna, if it's not right, Pluto has no problem raising that.
Right.
Like it's like the energy of a glacier that is going to push through the mountain. And you think the mountain's strong, but Pluto's stronger,
Right.
really.
Yeah, relentless.
Exactly. Yeah.
Demolishes, eradicates. It's like, although, and then rebuilding it. Amazingly, some of these cities, like I was just thinking, there have been so many fires.
Australia.
Yeah,
It's
right
just
now. Besides
terrible.
Amazon and Africa, they all start
Right.
with A.
Yeah.
But Australia has a Capricorn sun.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and Saudi
Oh, my
Arabia
God.
does. Seattle, supposedly Seattle does. But we also have here in Seattle a Capricorn ascendant, very late, 29 degrees. And you think of the huge institutions that have started. There's
Right.
warehouse, there's Boeing's that's having a lot of trouble right now.
Right.
And if they survive.
Warehouser. What does
Yep.
it mean? Are they still
And
around?
now we have Google and
Google,
Amazon. They're
Facebook,
bringing in
Amazon.
18,000 people. It's like just-
Microsoft. I mean, that's all over the
Yeah.
east side.
we're
Techno giants.
And here too, I think it was Detroit. Where was Detroit? Detroit is, yes, they're Capricorn sun too. In fact, they could be. Yes, Detroit is a Cancer moon and Capricorn sun, just
Oh
like
my
what we're
gosh.
having
Huh.
right now. So when you think of the car industry and
Right.
some of all the changes that have been happening there, and it is rebuilding itself, from what I understand, because for a while it was grassroots.
And you mentioned Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has its natal Pluto is at 23 degrees Cancer. So it's having a Pluto opposition right now with Saturn there. So we can expect to see, something happening with Saudi Arabia. And we don't know what that will be.
No.
Nope.
Yeah. And China in its natal chart has Jupiter at 22 degrees Capricorn. So Pluto and this whole stellium is right on that right now. So is that going to be positive for China because Jupiter is a benefic? We'll have to see.
And the eclipse was in that area. Usually, wherever the area of the eclipse, there's more powerful connections.
So it was visible in that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not all of China, but the lower section, and then going right across Southeast Asia and in lower part of India. And
Well,
like it was
Jupiter also has to do with like the natural world, and I mean, with did you say China's Jupiter is in Cancer?
Jupiter is 22
Is Cancer?
degrees Capricorn.
Oh, Capricorn. Ah, yeah, and they're like huge on poaching.
Well,
Like they pay top dollar to have animals from all over the
I
place.
know.
Oh, they're some of the biggest consumers of having endangered species poached and illegally
I just,
brought
oh,
into their country. So
that's the horrible situation
Yeah.
of Australia with the koala bear. They're saying perhaps in 20 years
kangaroos,
you only
wallabies,
see them in zoos.
They're talking about extinction of
over a billion
over a billion
billion
animal
animals,
deaths
yeah.
and extinctions of possible breeds of animals that are only found on Australia. It's such
Right.
a unique ecosystem.
right.
So this
Yeah,
gets
it's pretty
back to
terrible.
there are Capricorn is the release point, and because it's all funneled down to the moon. Well, that was as far as the eclipse, not for tomorrow. It's already gone over to Leo, but the point is that we need. There's limitation. This is where we're showing that if things have not been ethically. Well, it's not all the ethics. It's a matter of climate because they had a lot of drought. But with Ceres in there, it's amazing how we understand they do represent some of these factors that. So what does that mean? That means if we have hardships, well, I know that the world is supporting.
It's a matter of responding.
Yeah, this is
It's timing and how you respond to things too.
and it's about correct use of power.
Right.
And-
Because
and-
they didn't call in, they didn't even call in their military until almost the whole thing was burnt down, and they already lost almost
Oh, that's
like a
unfortunate.
billion animals. Like they didn't call in to have that.
Well,
help.
and
They didn't get the help, I should say.
And on a bigger scale, this Saturn-Pluto transit is about where has our leadership, Saturn,
Right.
been in correct use of power, and
Right.
where has it not? And it's exposing that
Yeah.
to the world.
So
Exactly.
perhaps this
Yeah.
is going right back to that factor of the parental, because and the idea of the ancients and the indigenous saying is community, and it's we, and we all have a part, because the Lakota,
Right.
that was a sacred hoop, are saying we all have a part in this. So rather than leaving it to our parental or our leaders, if we all go within with the yin and find what is passionate for us, and it can be small because everything has like a gear shift, how it makes a difference.
Yeah, and there's the inner and the outer. Before you can really help others, you have to be able to help yourself. And so being able to stand in your own authority and stand in your own power are very important
Essential.
at this time. And that may be part of what the Saturn-Pluto transit is showing us. That may be part of that Saturn report card to show us where are we with our inner authority. And
Yeah, where's our foundation? Make
Yeah.
those choices. What reality are we living, each one of us? Because, when we know here in the United States, work weeks can be very long. I mean, for those that have work, it's like there's no end. It's not like other countries where their whole balance of time off and work is perhaps in a better perspective. And it does link up with this whole idea of achievement and being able to have the dream and et cetera. But really, collectively right now, especially with the North Node in Cancer, which is a processing and personal sign and an emotional sign, it just, again, speaks of this great need to develop our inner strength.
Yeah, and Capricorn is also represents time. It
Yeah.
feels like there's just not enough
Yeah.
time. And the United States natally has its Pluto in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
And next year we will be having our Pluto return.
Yep.
And wherever Pluto is
Or 2022, I think.
okay, maybe
Yeah,
2022.
very close. though.
Very close. We're feeling it now. I mean, you can see it out there.
It's close. The
It's-
orb.
Yeah. I mean, you can see where we are with our Pluto, which is our soul work. And so, but Pluto can be very obsessive, and there is an obsessive drive to, with Capricorn, to, be the best and to rise to the top and to work.
Yep.
It is interesting how the cardinal, because it's cardinal, it's an action, or one of the, because in astrology we have the cardinal signs, we have the
Fixed, mutable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, because energy, it never destroyed, it just keeps shifting, and it immediately acts like a fire, or else it coagulates and cools down, you might say, or solidifies, and then it breaks away, and pattern goes on. So right now we are in this action oriented, and the importance is to realize to use the higher ethical standard. So if we are making choices, I'm thinking of a Libra, the square just before it, rather than too much comparison that makes us insignificant, by choosing what we want, knowing ourselves inside. And there's lots of ways to start. Just making little changes can help.
It's much easier to make a choice when you know who you are and when you know what you want.
Right.
And this is, sometimes bad things happen, but it's all about how you respond to it. So you could have, something horrible happen because there's a Pluto Saturn transit in hard aspect to something in your chart natally. That doesn't mean that you're not doing your Pluto or Saturn work. It just it's just all about and how you're able to handle it and then respond to it and bounce
Right.
back.
Excellent.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
We can all relate. I can
Yeah.
think of XYZ times.
Right. Yeah.
We'll kind of, yes.
Well, yeah, and especially like when you're talking about how you respond and stuff. I mean, the thing that is so human and like has a lot. I'm touching on the whole community idea, I guess, a bit here too. Is that with these fires that are leadership aren't really like jumping on. It's amazing, like when you look on social media, like how many people have created pages for people to donate to these different organizations that are like actually going over there to help with saving animals and helping with the fire and helping all the rescue work and everything that they need. Like that's when you see how important it is for community and how important it is for people to just not let themselves be led. Because it's like what you're saying too about making choices. If you don't stand up and make a choice, if you don't have any idea of what you want or who you are,
Yeah.
and you see things like that, you can look at the world and go, what a horrible place, or it's like I don't feel like I can do anything. It's like there's always something you can do.
Yeah,
Great or
and that's
small,
and that's
right?
the very cardinal
Right?
piece of Capricorn.
Yeah.
It's the taking action and not expecting others to do it.
Right.
It's being your
That's
own
right. Be
authority. Like, this is
apparent.
what I want in my
Right.
life,
Blame.
and I'm going to
Yeah.
take some action.
Exactly.
Getting away
Yeah.
from the victim part. 'Cause
Right.
that old story, it's just one story. It's like there's
Well,
other
yeah, Saturn
ways.
can be like the victim, It can totally go into victim mode
yeah.
too, due to its like guilt and shame and everything else,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, Saturn can totally go there.
And
Pluto will expose it.
and it's really easy to feel victimized by Saturn transits
Right?
as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that
Because it is the external.
it's the
a lot of
external,
times.
I think Saturn gets a bad rap because it wants us to take responsibility in all areas of our lives.
Right.
And that is a challenge. Sometimes we have blocks that
Right.
prevent us from taking ownership in specific areas. And so then it feels hard.
Right. Well, yeah, because, and if you're not wanting to look at it, right?
Yeah.
If you're wanting
Yeah.
to be in denial of it, it's like Saturn is there to help you grow.
Yes.
That's what Saturn really wants.
And
whether
we're-
or not you want it or not, like it's going to
Yeah.
happen when it's with Pluto.
And we're all in
That's very
denial in
true.
certain areas in our lives.
Right?
That's just human.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be challenging, but the more that you work with Saturn, the more rewarding it will be. Saturn will
There's
reward
results.
you.
It's
Yeah.
true. There
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It
There are
does
results,
have,
yeah.
and inner wise too. Suddenly one's trigger points aren't quite the same because one begins to see the interconnection. You can
The reality shifts.
Yes,
Right.
thank you very
Yes.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's possible that someone could be having something really beneficial right now with this Saturn Pluto transit. If it's, in trine to one of their personal planets, and they could be rewarded for something, for their hard work and for taking ownership for things.
Or getting out of something that they've been wanting to get out of, but were afraid to, right?
Yeah.
They get that sudden like push to get out.
Yeah.
And it could be painful, but then they'll end up being rewarded down the road,
Yeah.
right?
And you could be getting rewarded for something right now, and it still feels really
Right.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rose Marcus, who's a Canadian astrologer and quite amazing and has her podcast and all, and I printed out something that she was saying, but she was just parroting what you were mentioning in this article, that evolution occurs on all levels, and that, okay, I'll just leave it at that because I saw all this. But I had to bring up, though, Eris. Now, Eris is the goddess of discord. And she doesn't, and discord because she doesn't want to be left out. Well, she is right now squaring all that at 23 degrees Aries. So we would be doing great harm if we did not bring up the fact that there is somehow this energy of, and now she didn't just decide how. Well, the discord was because of the opportunity that other people had to decide. So there's so many. I mean, at that point, it was like, who's the fairest? Because
Yeah, she rolled an apple into a party and said
that she had not been invited to.
Right, that she had not been invited to, and said this is for the fairest. And then there was a fight that ensued.
Well, it did, because Paris was being promised, was going to be given something, and there were the three goddesses that she rolled it out to. There was Athena of wisdom, and Hera of marriage, to Zeus, and then Aphrodite of love. And so they were going to give power or wisdom or love. And so, of course, Paris said, I will take Helen, the most beautiful woman of the world. Well, unfortunately, she was married. That was not such a good idea. And she was over in Trojan, and, of course, the Trojan War started, and everything happened. But the point is that all she said was, who's the fairest? But out of that, this war started. So here we have Eris 23.
Eris likes to shake things up.
Oh, definitely.
So here
Keep
it
it
is
moving.
square to all this Capricorn energy. And it's kind of like, it basically wants to kind of expose that which is not stable.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very good.
And Capricorn, it's all about structure and stability, but
no chaos.
But exactly. No, it wants control. But Pluto is here to transform that and kill off that which is not working anymore. And Eris is shaking that up as well.
So I guess understanding that we have these dynamic energies, yes, is important. It's not like, and it keeps one away from that victim mode thinking, oh, it's like, wait a minute, this is what it takes to get to the path.
Yeah. Yeah. And we haven't mentioned either that about Ceres being in this stellium.
Oh, my goodness.
And Ceres is another mother archetype and an archetype of loss. And it just speaks to the need for more nurturing of the self and finding that structure within, that a nurturing foundation within.
There's a lot of support. I do have to mention about next week. Next week will be Catherine Undren, and she is an astrologer on the East Coast, and we will be...
The love astrologer.
Yes, indeed. You can find her there, and one of the new astrologers for me, but not for herself. She speaks on many occasions, webinars and that. So that will also be in Capricorn. And I think it'll be on the cusp. So we're kind of going swaddling the cusp. So that'll be very exciting. And, Eris, it had been brought to my attention that this is what I'm going to read. There's only one single instance of this particular event occurring in recorded history. The last exact square between Pluto in Capricorn and Eris in Aries, because you have to know, too, that Capricorn is like the third square around from Aries. And, of course, Uranus was in Aries for a long time. But anyway, so that was Pluto in Capricorn, Eris in Aries. Occurred 7 times in BC, 691 BC. And during that time, there was Buddha in India, Zoroaster in Persia, Pythagoras in Greece, and Confucius in China. I mean, it goes, in India, they wrote how do you say that? Upanishads?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And Mesopotamia. There's so many issues. So we're really at a critical process. I guess I have to say it's a process. It's not just today.
It's like a junction, critical junction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, blessings to both. This has been really exciting. We take on some pretty major conversations. And I'm so glad to kind of recount the inner authority, taking those traditions of past and remembering the reverence of nature and our communal unity, that we are in this somehow wonderfully together. Is
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
really an important factor. And for those people that are listening, we are accepting calls, not on your charts, but if you have comments, do call in for various programs. We're glad to have you either ask us a question and we'll answer if there's something we've commented on that you'd like to understand. And more than that, just have really a supportive time between your own selves, your own thoughts, and those people close to you. And sign up. Yes.
And will be teaching a class on self-empowerment. So if you're looking to bust through any blocks that are keeping you from your inner authority, that will be starting on March 15th.
Oh, go to Talk Cosmos for Amanda Pierce.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you, Shannon Hayes.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.